Okay, so let's start. We're holding on the Chumash on today's Monday. We're holding on chapter 9, verse number 17. Vayakev es hamincha, he brought the mincha, the meal offering. Vayamal top of it, he filled his hand, his cup, his palm. Imena from the mincha, vayakta on mizbeach, and he brought it on the mizbeach. Mavad elas habeka, besides the morning offering. Rashi says this is the kemitza. This is the scooping that every mincha, most the minchas had to have. Rashi says all of this was made after the oila of the morning oila. Then he slaughtered the ox and the ram, which was the peace offering. That was for the people. And then Aaron presented the blood. The sons of Aaron gave him the blood. And he poured, he dashed on the altar, around the altar. And then he took the fats from the ox, from the ram, Alia from its tail. And the fatty covering the kidneys and the diaphragm of the liver. Rashi says, we're talking about the chaylev, the fats that surrounded the innards. And then he placed the fats on the top of the breast. And he put it on the altar. So Rashi says, after the waving, the kohen performed the waving, gives the portion to another kohen to make it to go up and smoke. The result is that the portion that were on top are now on the bottom again. So in the beginning, the chalavim, the fats were on bottom, but now when he gave it to the next kohen, he flipped it over. So now the chalavim came on the top, and the breast came on the bottom, and that's how everything was flipped. Beginning was one way; it was the chalavim, the fats were on the bottom, and now the pasuk says the fats are on the top. And Aaron already waved the breast and the right thigh. He brought it as an offering before God. I should see Hashem especially like God commanded, like I should see Moshe like God, like Moshe commanded. Verse number 22. And then he lifted his hand. To the people, and he blessed them. And they came down from doing the burnt offering, the sin offering, and the burnt offering, and the peace offering. Now she says, he gave the blessing of the Kehanim. The modern state. And they came down from the Mizbech. Verse 23. And Moshe and Aaron came to the tent of meeting. When they went out, they blessed the nation. Hashem, Al-Kolam, and the glory of God appeared before the entire nation. Now she says, why did they go in? Well, it says, Aaron came out. So why did they go enter into the tent of meeting? In this section of the verses, I found a brisa added to the version of Teres Kainim, which states the following. Why did Moshe enter without teach us that the procedure of burning the incense? Or the past enter only for another purpose? I can make the deduction. Standing from the altar, verse 22, and entering the tent of meeting, this verse both requires blessing the people. Just as descending the altar is related to the service, so entering the tent of meeting is related to the service. Hence, you learn from here why Moshe and Moses enter without, namely to teach him about the procedure of burning of the incense, which is related to the service. So that's why they went in again to bring up the potatoes, the incense off. Another explanation of why Moshe entered with Aaron, and Aaron saw the sacrifices have been offered, and all the procedure have been performed, and yet the Shekhinah had not descended upon Israel, for Israel. He was distressed. And he said, it's on my account that the Shekhinah is not descended for the Jewish people. So he said to Moshe, my brother, this is what you have done to me. You entered me and put me into shame. At once, Moshe entered the tent of meeting with him, and they prayed to the Eibishter, they prayed for God, to the mercy of God, The Yarda Hashchina Yisrael, and the Shechina, the presence of God, came down, showed itself to the Jewish people. Vayitzu, vayivarchu esam. They went out and they blessed the people. What did they tell them? They told them, Psalm number chapter 90. May the pleasantness of the Lord your God be upon us. May God's will be the Shekhinah rest on the work of your hands. And why did they choose this particular blessing? Because throughout all 7 days of the Miluim, when Moshe erected a Mishkan, performed the service in it, and then dismantled it daily, the Shekhinah did not rest upon it. The Jews were humiliated. They said to Moshe, Moshe, our teacher, all the efforts we have taken were so that the Shekhinah should dwell amongst us, so that we have to know that we were forgiven on the sin of the golden calf. Therefore, Moshe answered them, this is what the Lord had commanded. Do it, and the glory of the Lord will appear before you. My brother Aaron is more worthy and important than I. So far as through his offering and his service, the Shekhinah will dwell amongst you. And you will know that God has chosen him to be the Kohen Gadol. And that completes the Chumash for today. We now go to the Tanya of the day. The Alter Rebbe is talking about the concept of the meditation to awaken up, the concept of Ava and Yira. So Ava is much easier to accomplish, to awaken oneself. In the concept of Ava, it's much more difficult, the aspect of Yira. So the Alter Rebbe already established before that you cannot go, it's not considered an Avodah, it's not considered a service if one doesn't wake up, his Yira. One doesn't wake up, his Yiras Hashem. It's awe of God, because you need to have two concepts. You need to have love of God and respect, awe of God, as it's two different mitzvahs and two parts of the Shema. The first chapter in Shema is V'ahavta, you shall love God. And the second chapter, V'hayim Shamaya Tishmo, that you have to hearken to the voice of God. You need to have Yiras Hashem. You need to have awareness of God in any relationship. A true relationship needs to have these two concepts. So the Alter Rebbe is talking about what happens if we cannot arouse one's Ava and Yira. We have a difficulty. We have the dullness of the heart, and we don't have the capacity to have Ava and Yira. The Alter Rebbe, but what it will find is impossible to arouse even feeling of intellectual of awe of God. What happens if we cannot do that? We can have Avas Hashem, but it's hard for us to have Yiras Hashem, awness of God. In the awe of God, we're so far from godliness that even in our mind it's hard to create an awe of God. Forget about it in our hearts. Alter Rebbe will now go on to say that since this individual, too, meditates upon the above mentioned concept, and further, his intent during the study of Torah and the performance of mitzvah is to serve God. These activities are therefore also deemed constitute a complete, valid form of service. The Alter Rebbe validates each and every one of us. To those that can create Avas Hashem, love of God and fear of God, to those that can create love of fear of God in their mind, to those that even cannot create love of fear of God in their mind, but that they do in Torah mitzvahs, because that what they're thinking about, that is completely, that is a service to them. Every person to his situation cannot be somebody else. Furthermore, even in the case of an individual who even in his mind and thought feels no fear or shame, meaning an individual who is not moved by his contemplation of God, uniquely bestowed his kingdom upon him, and furthermore, he's not moved by the consideration that God is scrutinizing him to see if he's serving him as fitting. It does not talk to him. So basically, he doesn't have Avas Hashem and true Yiras Hashem because he doesn't move him. It is, and it's maybe not his fault out there. It's really not of his fault per se. It's because of the account of the limited grade of his soul. his soul is so limited in its capacity of revelation of God, even to the soul. Forget about the soul, the way it translates to the body. The soul itself is a very minute spiritual concept. It's called the spark of the soul, originating in the low degree of the 10 spheres of Asiya. So the soul of this individual derives from the world of action, the lowest of the four worlds. Moreover, within this world itself, it originates from the lowest degree of the 10 spheres that span it. So since his soul stems from such a lowly level, he finds itself impossible to reveal within itself a sensitivity to godliness, to experience even intellectual fear of God. So it's not even his fault, because basically he doesn't have the capacity of his soul to have such a kind of concept. So therefore, you might think that you are basically a person that has such a soul. He might think that basically he has no purpose, and he's not a real entity, and therefore it's not a real avodah. It's not a real service of God. Comes out to that, and he validates this person. Nevertheless, since he is intent in his service, to serve the king. So he might be a servant that has no intellect, but he's a servant that serves the king. He's a servant. He's in the service. That is a complete service. So what is complete to me is the complete to me. Might not be complete to you, but to me, if it's a service that I serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's considered a service. Because fear and service are counted to two commandments in the 632 commandments. And they not exclude each other. So although this individual fails to fulfill the commandment of fear of God, for fear must be felt in one's heart, and at the very least in one's mind, he is nevertheless able to fulfill the precept of the divine service by studying Torah and performing the commandments with the intention that he's thereby serving God, his king. And that's the concept. He still has the concept of Avodah. He still has the concept of the service of God. After all, has been said, Alter Rebbe will now say that although this person fails to experience the fear even in his mind, since he thinks about these ideas, which should evoke fear, he fulfills the command of fear. Alter Rebbe goes even further. And he says that not only does he do the service of God, but actually he does by himself, when he thinks about it, that he does fear God, that he wants to fear God, that he wants to be in awe of God, that he's learning about the awe of God, even though it's not an awe in his mind, but it's a concept by him, then it's the concept of fear. Furthermore, matter of fact, he's not only fulfilled the obligation of service, he has fulfilled the commandment of fear of God by introducing fear in his thoughts, by thinking about it and seeking to arouse it. Because at least at this hour, in this moment, rest upon in the fear of heaven. At least like the fear of the presence of an ordinary mortal. That's not a king. That's watching it. Everybody's afraid of somebody that's watching. We don't want other people to see what we're doing. So that alone, well, we're not afraid of that other person. People don't like other people watching them and seeing what they're doing. Uncomfortable. That's a fear of somebody else. Somebody else is watching. Not that somebody else is the king or the authority. There's somebody else watching. So if somebody else is watching brings upon me a fear, so why can the concept of I fear that the Eibishter is watching me, God is watching me, and that will bring about a little bit of fear upon me that I in my mind at least, I think that God is watching. When he would refrain from doing anything unseemly in the eyes of others. This is called yira. This is a concept of fear. I'm worried about what somebody else is going to think about me. I'm worried about what I have a certain kind of an aura, and I know I don't want anybody to see what I'm doing. So now, if I don't want another person to be able to see that who I really am. So it's a concept of fear. I'm not afraid of the other person, but it's a concept of fear. To me, it's an aspect of fear. When Rabbi Zaka was dying, he told them, he gave them a bracha, May it be God's will that the fear of heaven be upon you like the fear of a human being. Alavai, you would fear God like you fear somebody else. Just like you imagine you're embarrassed of somebody else knows what you're thinking, somebody else knows what you're doing, somebody else saw what you did. Everybody's worried about the opinion of somebody else. Alavai, Rabbi Zaka said, Alavai, you would have the same embarrassment and bush in front of the Eibishter, from the God. So they said, when a part of his disciples protested and said, no more than this. So he said, no. His response was, his response to the proof is indeed, in true form of fear is follows. For you know when a person commits a sin, he says, may no one see me. Whatever a person thinks is a sin. So when a person thinks is a sin, he doesn't want another person to see. His main thing is that nobody else should see. So such a fear held Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai would be ensure that they refrain from sinning. At any rate, we know that this manner of fear is duly designated as fear of heaven. So if it's a fear between two people or between humanity, that I'm afraid what somebody else is going to say. I'm afraid that by me it's important another person's opinion. By me it's important what another person thinks about me. So if that's a concept of fear, I'm in fear of somebody else knowing the truth. I'm in fear of somebody else having a bad opinion about me. So if I can create that fear within me, that I'm afraid that the Eibishter knows what I'm doing, I'm afraid that God is watching me, that alone is a good fear. Because the distance persons from sin. Because if I'm afraid that, God is watching, so then it's a concept of fear of heaven. And that is a fear. Even though it's not really a fear, because just like I'm not afraid of somebody else, really, it's just I'm trying to keep a certain kind of aura about myself. But it is a fear. It keeps me from sinning. Accordingly, attain this level of fear through meditation amounts to a proper fulfillment of the commandment of his. Alter Rebbe says, if you would accomplish this fear, you did the mitzvah of Yiras Hashem. You should only know this is a term in Kabbalah. This is termed a lower level of fear. The fear of sin. Which precedes wisdom. Meaning it's only the lower fear, a fear of transgression, rather than fear of God himself. Right? So when a person says, I'm ashamed of what somebody else is going to see me, he's not afraid of what he's doing bad. He's just afraid of somebody else. Really? If nobody else is watching, I'm not afraid of anything. But I'm afraid somebody else is watching. If I go to a closed room and I do things in the dark and I do things away from other people, but not afraid of this. Actually, I know if I'm doing something positive, why would I be ashamed of somebody else? So I'm doing something negative. I know I'm doing something negative. Why aren't you afraid of the negative thing itself? No, I'm afraid of somebody else. So too, a person can have the same concept. I'm not afraid of the sin. I'm afraid God's watching. God is watching. God is watching. So that's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid God's watching. I'm not afraid of the sin. Because God's watching. But ultimately, that's fair. Because ultimately, I'm not doing the sin. Whether I am afraid of the sin I'm afraid of God's watching, I'm afraid somebody else is watching. It's all the same thing. Ultimately, it's the concept of fear. Maybe it's a very lower level of fear, but ultimately it's a mature level of fear, but it's still a fear. But a person ultimately needs to reach up to Yirah, which is the higher level of fear, which is what? Not fear, but actually Yirah Beishus, which is a shame. Shame-faced fear, meaning a state of being abashed and overawed in the presence of God. That's shame. So therefore, if a person can have that the Eibishter God is in front of him at all times, and now he's embarrassed to do something, not afraid of the sin, not afraid of God's punishment. He's a bunch of embarrassed. How can I stand in front of God and do this kind of concept? The Isyira, the Isyira. As we know, there are two kinds of fears. The lower level of fear, which leads to the performance of mitzvahs, Torah mitzvahs, and the high level of fear, which results from proper performance of Torah mitzvahs. And that's the difference. So one brings you, leads you to do a mitzvah because you're afraid of God, and one level of fear actually it helps you do the mitzvah correctly. Because I want to make sure that what I do and what I'm doing is correct, because I'm embarrassed if I would do something incorrect. I believe in a cloud, but if you don't have no fear, not the higher level of fear, not even the lower level of fear, one fulfillment of Torah and mitzvahs like Baruch Halela, Ba'ava Levada will not go on high with love itself. Like a bird that can't fly with one wing. And the love and fear, the two wings, has brought down the desire. So we need to have Avas Hashem, whatever kind of level of love and fear. I need to have these two concepts of love and fear to make sure that I do that I create Ava Hashem, I create that my mitzvah has the capability to go on high. So the spiritual wings of love and fear elevate the Torah mitzvahs performed under this impetus. The supernal spheres, as explained in the previous chapter, when one lacks a fear of God and acts only out of love, he's operating with only one wing, thus making it impossible for his Torah mitzvahs to soar on. And so too, if somebody serves God only out of fear, is also 1 week. And it does not go above, even though he's called an Eved, he's called a servant, because a servant only does by fear. So therefore, the service of an Eved is wonderful. You've done the service, you're committed, but it's not like Parchalela. It's not going to go above. But and you need to have the second category, the second wing, which is the son, which is motivated by love. So we need to have these two concepts in Kibbanim, if we're like children in Kavadim, that we need to have the concept of children, that we are children of God, that we serve God out of love, and then we need to be in the service. We are in the service of God, which is the concept of awe. We need to awaken up our natural love. I'm a status believer which is hidden in my heart. The tape is galus mechap, but it should be revealed in my mind that I have a avas Hashem. I do have a love for God, and I need to waken up that love, that natural love, that innate love that every Jew has to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Liska avase la'avase Hashem. To recall His love of God, Hashem to the oneness of God. B'machshavte in His thought, u'b'tzeina in His will. This recollection of his hidden love for God should arouse within him the desire to cleave to him. This should be his intent when occupying himself with Torah and in particular mitzvahs. He's about to perform that he should want to cleave, that his divine soul as well as his vivifying soul together with their garment shall cleave to him, to God. That's really the point of the kavanah, of my intent of all mitzvahs is I'm trying to connect to HaKadosh Baruch. I'm trying, I have a love of God, I have a fear of God, and therefore I'm trying to make this connection. And my whole life is in the concept of creating this connection in this Kollel, as I mentioned before. So in summary, a Jew's divine service must embrace both that of the son, who serves his father out of love, and of a servant who serves his father, master, out of fear and awe. And by that way, you accomplish this concept of Parcha Le'ela, that you have the capability of this connection. And that's what really we're trying to do, is create this connection. And that completes the Tanya of today. Today is the 19th day of the month, which is chapter 90, chapter 96. Chapter 90 to chapter 96. You do these 6 chapters, you'd accomplish Itas of the day. Wish you all a beautiful day, a good night, a happy night. I'll see you all tomorrow, 8 o'clock. We can start a little late because the davening goes a little longer. So it's closer to 8:10 or 8:15 that we're going to start the Chitas of the day. Wonderful and beautiful.